Welcome. This is Steve Shadrack, founder of Support Raising Solutions. This podcast is part of a 15-week series launching your first 100 days after boot camp. Today's episode is hosted by our friend, Aaron Babiar.
Our guest today is Callie Buchholtz, who is the MPD, Ministry Partner Development Coordinator for TeachBeyond. And Callie has a great story. She actually has been fully funded for about 6 years personally. But years ago, she actually raised her full support in 60 days. Now, truth be told, she only needed to raise $2,000 per month, so it wasn't a lot initially. But then, years later, she started transitioning into a different role at the organization, and she took just 6 weeks to raise another $2,000 per month. So obviously, she knows a thing or two personally about building up a support team and being spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded. Currently, TeachBeyond, or I guess regularly TeachBeyond, will have around 500 staff. There's a lot of turnover with that because it is a teaching type missions organization. So, Callie, correct me if I'm wrong, you get about 100 new staff each year. Is that right?
Yep, every summer.
That's great. And also, that's a lot of work for you.
Oh, yeah.
So now I know you have some people that help you with the coaching. You do it full time, but correct me if I'm wrong. You've been able to raise up about 10 different people who do some part-time coaching with you as well?
Just this year. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Callie, as you know, today we're talking about seeking balance. And most people that are listening to this they've gone through a boot camp, they've gone through foundations, or at least they read the God Asked and they went and found our podcast online or something like that. But as they're listening to this, we sent out an email to people that have recently gone through our formal trainings that talks about seeking balance in their life. And I know that you're going to introduce yourself a little bit more right now, but when you hear that term, seek balance, what do you think of when it comes to that whole area of MPD, Ministry Partner Development?
Well, I think it's a really good recommendation because a lot of people tend to go to one extreme or the other. Either they will dive full into support raising and forget to do anything else. I had to give one of my staff members permission to take a Sabbath, and they looked at me with such relief because they had been pouring so much of their time into it that it was overwhelming them, that they had no time to set aside and seek God, to breathe, to spend time with their family. And so giving them that permission, it's a good thing. So
you had never said, hey, don't take a day off. You probably always expected that they would take a day off.
Right.
But they weren't.
Right.
So how did you figure that out, that hey, there's a disconnect here?
Well, it was hearing back from them of just how completely overwhelmed they were. And I had been coaching them continuously to know that they'd been at this for a number of months and they were starting to sound burned out. And I was trying to figure out where can they get more energy and more life and kind of be able to finish what they were doing.
So the term Sabbath, obviously, people put some different prisms over that, if you will. I don't like that. We're going to have to say that again. Delete where I said the term Sabbath. So when it comes to a Sabbath, obviously sometimes that can mean a slightly different thing to slightly different people. But it sounds like in this context, you're talking about people just full on taking a day away from responsibilities, specifically support raising responsibilities, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not always going to be a 24 hours, and it's probably not going to be on Sunday because church is a great place to connect with people that you want to meet up with later. But giving yourself permission to take time that you're not going to return phone calls, you're going to work your schedule to have appointments other times except for this time you're taking away, and that you can just breathe.
So what's that look like for you? Even when you were raising your support and you had to take a Sabbath, or even people that you're coaching right now and they're like, oh, well, it's going to be Sunday. You're like, no, probably not Sunday. So what does that look like for some people? Because I got a feeling we probably have some listeners to our conversation that might not be getting this one quite right. And there might need a little bit of direction as to what a Sabbath should actually look like for them.
Well, I would recommend being flexible when you first start because you might not realize what your schedule is going to look like. And then it probably will find a rhythm. You'll find you're setting a lot of lunch appointments, a lot of dinner appointments. So maybe it's a Monday morning and a Friday evening are the times that you can carve out a couple hours that, together make a solid chunk of time for you to pour into your family, to take a nap, to not be looking at your spreadsheet one more time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that sometimes people, they'll take that Sunday nap and they get in that nice habit, and then all of a sudden they forget that when they're kind of taking some time off, that, well, this is a good time for you to take a nap. It's a good time to do it. Mm-hmm. I know that myself, when I was raised in support, my wife and I chose Monday for our Sabbath for the same reasons you already hit upon. But we also figured, well, we really enjoy going to the movies. And so Monday afternoon, I'm telling you, it's really easy to get a ticket. It's a little cheaper than normal.
Sure.
And that was part of our rhythm, was Monday was the day that I pulled back. So when you have people that pull back and you're trying to get them to seek balance. I know Sabbath is just a part of it. That's not the only thing. And I agree with you, and I know your perspective on that, and I appreciate it. It's important, but unwrap a little bit more about some of the boundaries that come with that, or maybe even with other relationships.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first, just even with time, it's a hard thing when you don't have a regular schedule of, every morning you're going to start meeting with people at 9 and be done at 5 and then go home. It's not a regular job. You're meeting with people all these odd different times. So trying to have a good habit, a good rhythm, just even in just healthy life practices. We're talking eating right, exercising right. When you can't do it at the same time every day, it gets hard. So setting priorities and boundaries for yourself in your personal life of when are you going to carve out that time is really important. And I think one thing that can be really difficult is boundaries with people and your family and your friends.
Sure.
When is it a support raising conversation? When is it just a friendship conversation?
So you're not supposed to always turn it back to another support raising conversation? No? Okay.
You always want people to walk away knowing you value them as a person.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really difficult with family to know, they know you're wanting to talk to them about support raising, but is that going to be before dinner or after dinner or in the middle of dinner? And you're waiting for the right time and they're not mentioning anything, and it just becomes awkward for everyone. Versus setting better boundaries of communicating, first of all, of saying, hey, after dinner, can we have this conversation? And then suddenly dinner time is just family time. Everyone knows when you're having the conversation about your ministry and when you want to talk to them about what that means. And you are free just to care and build normal relationships like you've always done in the free time. That's
great. There's a guy who's telling me recently that was back over the holidays that he decided really what he was going to do is, I don't know if it was an uncle or who it was, or somebody, it was Christmas holidays and everyone was going to be in the same house. And he was like, what if it turns into like a 3-hour support raising conversation and it's never going to end? And he had decided to say, you know what, let's go get coffee at some point and we'll talk about it then, that hour. But otherwise, we don't have to talk about that constantly. Yeah, I'm passionate about doing it, but let me buy you a cup of coffee for that moment.
Yeah.
So sounds like you would certainly affirm that sort of approach to it.
Absolutely. And then it's also true too, most of my support raising, I've gone home to stay with my parents, just being the youngest unmarried child. It's a wonderful time to be able to stop by and see them. And they have a lot of the connections to my supporters. They're in the area, but I've done this poorly and I've learned and done it better. Staying at home means I'm available for my parents.
Oh.
And it's, Callie, we're going over here and visiting these people. You should come. Or can you help me make dinner? Can you run an errand?
You're right.
And just being able to set better boundaries of, hey, this time is working time.
Oh, this is a work trip, Mom and Dad. It's a business trip. You're a hotel this time.
and making that clear to them, to myself too, because I love being home. I love being able to see my parents. I value that. But wanting to have the time I'm spending with them, being fully present myself, and then being able to fully be involved in ministry during those times.
I don't hear in any of this, I don't hear you saying, stop support raising, just always put your relationships with everybody else first over your support raising, which I probably even said that wrong, but I think you get the point. Again, I hear you talking about balance of knowing, hey, there are some important conversations that need to be had, and you want to invite people in, and yet that doesn't mean that everything has to be in disarray and just a total mess in all your relationships until there's suddenly maybe someday clarity. You can kind of boil that down by having some good boundaries and some good balance.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of that comes with just communication and setting expectations, and people, especially the people you know well, know you're going to talk to them about support raising.
Sure.
They've heard you're going to ministry. It's the elephant in the room. So are you going to let that just linger and coat all your interactions, or figure out when is that conversation going to take place, and when is our friendship, how is that going to continue alongside? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it is incumbent on you as a support raiser a lot of times to be the one that defines that time, defines when you're going to dig into that. Let's segue a little bit when we're talking about balancing life and setting your schedule. And you had mentioned a term to me earlier, and we were just even kind of getting ready and setting up the microphones and all this. And you said organically versus legalistically. What did you mean? You didn't unpack that anymore. So I'm kind of been looking forward to hearing you kind of talk about those when it comes to setting your schedule and your life balance.
Well, some of this depends on personality. I am a very organized person. So for me, when it comes to support raising, I've been in a season of increasing support. It meant blocking out every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, that those are my times to follow up and make phone calls, to have set aside chunks of time to work on support raising while I'm still in full-time ministry. But I can go overboard in that and refuse to take calls at other times and refuse to allow some flexibility, which when you're trying to get a hold of people, it's not always going to fit in the perfect box. So I can actually end up damaging this whole support raising process if I become too rigid.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, if you're just always going to let it free flow and happen whenever, it means it means it never stops. It's a part of every single minute of every single day.
Right.
So giving yourself the flexibility to realize getting a hold of people happens at different times. It's not always going to fit. It will be a little more natural, but not letting that just become a free for all.
Good. No, I'm glad you put it that way. Actually, there was a time for me, not that too distant past, where I was adding a little bit extra support to my team, and there was a handful of people I could not get a hold of when I tried to reach out to them during the day. And finally, I went, you know what? Wednesday night at 7:00, my kids are going to be at church, and I'm going to go to this restaurant here that's really quiet and put in my headphone, and I'll just see if I can get a hold of them then. And Callie, I got a hold of like all 5 of them, like immediately. And it really had come back to, I really don't like making phone calls after about like 2:00 during the day. So I just wasn't calling anybody when it suited me. But at one point I had to go, all right, I'm kind of my own worst enemy here. So I think I've lived even just what you're describing. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. So speaking of restaurants, I know we talked about that before. There's also, this whole other thing of life balance and being in restaurants a lot, perhaps, or to kind of unwrap that for me, because I almost feel, because we're not like we're not CrossFit. We're not, we're support raising solutions. We're not here to talk about exercise and diet all the time and stuff like that. But I know that is something that comes up quite a bit. So unwrap that a little bit for us.
Well, especially when you're eating out so much more than maybe you usually do, because you're having all these appointments with people, that can drastically change your diet. And often maybe not in a healthy way, but going into that, being aware of just that reality. You're going to be eating out more. So what choices are you going to make? And then also in that, you're going to be talking a lot. So that influences what you order too. I would say it just comes with being aware.
Stay away from the soup.
Yes. And the spaghetti.
Just takes a little bit longer and a few more chews to eat certain things, right?
Yeah.
A buddy of mine once was raising his support, and he by his own choice, no, it wasn't his organization. I certainly didn't tell him, but he decided that he needed to add some discipline across the board. And I don't know the facts and figures. I just know he got really healthy as he was raising support. And part of it was just discipline. And I know I know some dietary choices came in there. I know some exercise came in there, but also he got really busy about setting a schedule and making asks, and he just had a whole lot of balance in his life, and you could visibly tell when you saw him. It was just like, wow, you're living right here, buddy.
Wow.
So I know that when you get a chance to coach, there's like 100 new people coming through your organization every year. That's such a delicate topic, or it can be, because none of it, we're trying to help people get spiritually healthy, vision driven, and fully funded. We're not trying to get people to run marathons. But I mean, that's great if they do, but how does TeachBeyond approach that particular topic? Or maybe it's not even organizationally, maybe it's you and some of those that coach with you. How do you guys approach that particular topic when it comes to having that balance?
Well, I think that comes with caring holistically for the people that we're coaching and the new staff that are coming in. It's not just about how many dollars you raise this week. It's how are you doing as a person?
Yeah.
What is life giving for you? Is that, are you going for a walk? Are you running? What habits have you lost in this season that are healthy habits for you?
That's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Callie, as always, you have a great perspective, and I always enjoy hearing from you and the different ways that we get to interact, whether you're writing for our blog or you're helping to train one of our public support raising solutions boot camps or whatever else. But definitely appreciate you and being a part of the network. And thanks for dropping in today and sharing with us a little bit more about your processes and helping those that you coach to seek balance in their support raising. And God bless you, my friend. And I'm sure we'll have you on here again someday.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. We encourage you to listen and subscribe to the SRS podcast that answers questions and dives into topics relevant to ministry partner development. For more resources, browse our website, supportraisingsolutions.org.